It was just another normal day, the kind that blurs into the rest, with sky still dark when I left my apartment and the air heavy with fog. I worked in facilities management at one of those tall, corporate towers downtown. 40 floors of glass and carpet, designed to look modern but already aging from the inside. My shift started at 5 a.m., long before anyone else showed up. That was the appeal, the quiet, the predictability. Routine. The building had 2 sublevels, labeled B1 and B2, both strictly for maintenance. Pipes, power, storage. I'd ride the service elevator down with a clipboard in hand, check water pressure, look for signs of leaks or pests. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and the silence of early morning hours gave me a strange sense of peace. I never felt uneasy, not until that morning in October when something changed. The elevator panel blinked as usual. I pressed B2 out of habit, but when the lift began its slow descent, something strange happened. A new button lit up, B3. I stared at it, thought maybe I hit it by mistake. But that wasn't possible. There had never been a B3. It wasn't in the blueprints, wasn't part of any briefing. I felt my stomach twist as the car descended past B2 and kept going. It stopped with a metallic jolt. The doors slid open with a reluctant groan. I expected dim lighting, maybe a boiler room, but what I saw was wrong. The hallway ahead was long, impossibly long. The air hit me first, cold and thick like breathing in damp wool. The walls were lined with crumbling gray tile, and the overhead lights buzzed like old neon, flickering every few seconds in an off-rhythm pulse. There were no signs, no labels, just a hallway that seemed too wide and too quiet. I stepped out cautiously, half convinced this was a prank or maybe a mistake in the elevator software. My shoes echoed on the floor, but the echo felt delayed, like the sound had to pass through something thick before bouncing back. At the far end of the corridor was a steel door, rusted at the hinges and slightly ajar. But what stopped me from going closer was the vibration. I could feel it, faint, steady, like something behind the door was moving, slowly, heavily. There was no humming of machinery, just that low, rhythmic pulse. I turned around to head back into the elevator, but it was gone. I stood facing the wall, smooth concrete, no doors, no seams. The elevator had disappeared. Panic hadn't set in yet. Not exactly. It was more confusion than fear, like trying to remember if you locked the front door and not being able to tell if it was memory or assumption. I walked the hallway in the opposite direction, trying to find a stairwell, another lift, anything. But the corridor kept turning. Sometimes left, sometimes right. It felt like walking through a maze that rearranged itself behind you. The air changed subtly the longer I stayed. First colder, then wetter. My clothes began to cling to me, and the buzzing of the lights gave way to a quiet hissing, like breath against my neck, always behind me but never quite catching up. That's when I saw the vending machine, just sitting there in the corner of a hallway junction. Old yellowed plastic. Nothing inside but dark shapes I couldn't quite identify. The lights inside flickered independently of the rest. When I walked past it, the hissing stopped for a moment, replaced by a soft thud from somewhere far behind me. I didn't look back. After what felt like half an hour, I turned a corner and saw another elevator. A normal one this time, brushed metal, modern panel. No extra buttons. Just G for ground. I didn't hesitate. I pressed the button and stepped inside. The doors closed instantly, without me even hitting anything. The ride up was silent. No humming. No floor indicators lighting up. Just silence, so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. When the doors opened, I stepped out into a completely different building. Same architecture, same brand signage, but wrong. The lobby furniture was off. The lighting colder. I was standing in the tower across the street, a completely separate building, one I had no access to. The security guard at the desk blinked when he saw me, asked how I got in. I told him I came up from the basement. He said that was impossible, the basement was sealed. Had been for years. I reported what happened to my supervisor. He laughed at first, then got quiet, said he'd check the schematics. But later that afternoon, I got a call from HR. They asked if I was feeling stressed lately. if I'd been sleeping well. It wasn't accusatory, just gently dismissive. I quit 3 weeks later. But that floor, that hallway, still finds its way into my dreams. Sometimes I hear the lights buzz before I wake up. Sometimes I feel the air shift behind me when I'm alone. And once, not long ago, I was walking through the subway when a door next to the platform creaked open. It was metal, rusted, and I swear, I could feel the thud behind it, like someone was still pacing, still waiting for me to come back. There's an elevator in my building that always gave me a weird feeling. It's not old or anything. Just one of those standard steel boxes with fake wood paneling and a flickering fluorescent light overhead. But something about riding it alone at night made me uneasy. Maybe it was the silence, or the way the buttons lit up a second too late, like they had to think about it. I live on the 14th floor, so I get to spend a lot of time in there. I first noticed the man about a month after I moved in. It was late, maybe close to midnight, and I was coming home from work. I stepped into the elevator and hit 14. Just before the doors closed, someone slipped in. A man in a black coat, standing stiff and still, didn't say a word. He pressed no button. I figured he lived on one of the lower floors and just hadn't bothered. I see that a lot. But he didn't get off. Floor by floor passed, and he just stood there, staring at the door. No phone, no fidgeting. Just stillness. When we reached 14, I hesitated. He hadn't moved. I got out quickly, looking over my shoulder. The doors shut, and the elevator continued upward, even though there were no floors above mine. I told myself there had to be a reason. Maybe he worked maintenance. Maybe he lived on 15 if the building had a hidden upper level for staff. But the next night, he was there again. Same coat, same stillness, same lack of floor selection. I started paying attention to the patterns. I'd see him at odd hours, 2 a.m., 5 p.m., even once in broad daylight. No matter when I entered the elevator, there was a chance he'd already be inside. And always, he never got off. I never saw him anywhere else in the building. Not the lobby, not the mailroom, nowhere. I asked the front desk guy casually if there were any upper floors locked off. He shook his head. 14th's the top. Roof access is locked. Why? I just shrugged. I didn't want to sound paranoid, but I was starting to feel it. One evening, just before sunset, I stepped into the elevator with groceries in both hands. I didn't even look up until I felt that familiar chill. He was there again, silent, standing in the exact same spot. This time, I tried to speak. "You going up?" I asked. He didn't react, didn't blink, just faced the door, breathing so quietly I had to strain to hear it. The numbers ticked up. I felt a bead of sweat on my temple. I was trying to act normal, but every second in that box felt like it stretched forever. I couldn't help myself. I stole a glance at his reflection in the metal panel next to the buttons. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach flip. His reflection wasn't right. It was slightly off, slower than his real movements, like a delay in a video call. When the elevator dinged on 14, I bolted out. I didn't look back. I just closed my door and locked it twice. Over the next few days, I avoided the elevator. Took the stairs. 14 flights up, every day. My calves ached, but it felt safer. I convinced myself it was probably just a weird neighbor, socially awkward, maybe unwell. Until one night I heard it. I was lying in bed, lights off, when I heard the ding. The sound of the elevator arriving. Then nothing. No footsteps. No door opening. Just the quiet hum of the building settling. I got up and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but the elevator doors were still open. Waiting. I started having dreams. Always the same. I'd be in the elevator, the man beside me, but I couldn't see his face. He would turn to me slowly, and just before I could see what he looked like, I'd wake up, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. One morning, I finally cracked. I cornered the security guard in the lobby, a guy named Nate who always looked half asleep. "Hey," I said, "does the camera in the elevator work?" He raised an eyebrow. "Yeah. Why? Can I?" I know it's weird, but can I see a playback from the last few nights? I keep riding with this guy, and he's really creeping me out. Nate looked at me for a second, then sighed and pulled up the feed. We scrubbed through hours of footage, and I saw myself multiple times entering the elevator, riding up, alone. No man in black coat, no one beside me, just me, staring straight ahead like I expected someone to be there. My throat tightened. Can you check earlier that night? Maybe he got on before me. Nate humored me, rewinding. Nothing. No one. I was the only person using the elevator during those times. Over and over again. I walked away shaking. Either I was losing my mind, or something else was happening. I took the stairs again that night, heart racing the whole way. When I reached my floor, I passed by the elevator just as the doors opened. No one inside, but that same chill swept through the air, like a sudden drop in pressure. I moved out a few weeks later, found a smaller place on the 3rd floor of an old walk-up. No elevator, no chance encounters. I told myself it was just stress, that I was imagining things. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear it in my dreams. The soft ding of an elevator arriving. And I see the doors begin to close with someone already standing inside. I had just moved into a new office on the 17th floor of a downtown high-rise, one of those all-glass towers where the sound of your own footsteps bounces back at you. It was supposed to be a fresh start. New position, better salary, my own space. I spent the whole day directing the movers, watching as everything I owned was wheeled into that hollow, echoing room. By the time they left, it was already dark. I stayed behind, half unpacking, half staring out the massive window. From that height, the city looked like something distant, unreal, quiet. Around 9:30 p.m., I decided to call it a night. I locked the office, checked the hallway, and pressed the elevator button. When it arrived, it was empty, quiet, humming like a tired machine. I stepped in and pressed G. The doors closed, and everything felt routine until we passed the 10th floor. That's when it happened. A sudden jolt, like the elevator had hit something invisible. It came to a dead stop between floors. There was a mechanical groan. Then the lights dimmed. The air circulation stopped. No fan, no hum, just the creaking of steel and that uncomfortable silence. I tried pressing the button again. Nothing. The doors didn't budge. That's when I noticed the small red button beneath the panel. The emergency line. I pressed it. After a second of static, someone answered. A calm, female voice. Elevator assistance. What's your emergency? I felt a small wave of relief, like maybe this would be resolved quickly. I told her I was stuck between floors. No lights, no fan, just stopped. She asked for the building number. I gave it. Then she said something strange. You're not supposed to be in there. I paused. What do you mean? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, just above a whisper, she said, They don't like when people find that space. My chest tightened. I asked who they were. She didn't reply directly. Just stay very still, she said slowly. Don't let it know you noticed. My fingers froze on the panel. Don't let what know? I asked, barely breathing. Her voice was closer this time, like she'd leaned in. You'll feel it if it moves, she whispered. And if you feel it, it already knows you do. Then I heard it. A long, shallow breath. But it wasn't through the speaker. It was behind me. I turned around slowly. Nothing. Just walls of brushed metal and the dim reflection of my own pale face. The sound came again. Not through the speaker. Closer. Slow, drawn-in breathing, like something was trying not to be heard. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I stood frozen, staring at my reflection, too afraid to even blink. The emergency voice didn't say anything else, but I could hear her breathing 2 short, anxious breaths, like she was scared for me. My own phone buzzed in my pocket. One new voicemail, but I hadn't heard it ring. I glanced down, hands shaking. The screen said it was still 9:37 p.m., like no time had passed. I didn't open the message. I didn't want to. The elevator hadn't moved, but the air inside had changed. Thicker, warmer, felt watched. Without warning, the elevator jolted again. This time it started moving down, slow, heavy, grinding. The lights flickered once, then returned. The air circulation resumed. Everything felt normal again. I stared straight ahead, refusing to look around. When the doors finally opened at the ground floor, I ran. Past the lobby, out onto the street. I didn't stop until I reached my car and locked the doors. I sat there for several minutes, trying to convince myself it was stress, exhaustion, imagination. The next morning, I filed a report with the building's front desk. They said they'd check the elevator logs. Later that day, a manager called me back, confused. The elevator hadn't registered any emergency button pressed. In fact, according to their system, it hadn't stalled at all. I asked about the emergency operator. He told me the emergency line wasn't connected to a call center. It went directly to the security office, and nobody had answered any elevator calls that night. There were no records, nothing. He asked if I might have fallen asleep and dreamed it. I knew I hadn't. I didn't go back to the office. I sent someone to collect the rest of my things. I gave notice and ended the lease 2 weeks later. The voicemail from that night sat unopened for days. I couldn't bring myself to listen. Eventually, curiosity won. I played it on speaker in broad daylight. It was static at first. Then a voice, faint and trembling. The same woman from the elevator. She said, "Don't press it again." Then nothing. Just silence. I deleted it. Or at least I tried to. The message kept coming back. Every few weeks, the same thing. Same voice. Same warning. I changed phones. Switched carriers. It still finds me. Always at night. Always just after I think about what happened. I haven't taken an elevator in over a year. I take the stairs, no matter how high. I used to think those emergency buttons connected to help. To someone real, someone trained. But now I wonder if they open something else. A line to somewhere or something that isn't supposed to answer. Sometimes I dream about that space between the floors. The hum, the stillness, the breath that wasn't mine. I wake up before the doors open. I don't want to know what's waiting on the other side.